It's noon. Hey everybody, Dave Rollins here. You might know me as Cinedar on Instagram. I wanted to make this video to show how I've switched over from the Epson scanners to digitizing all my film with a Canon 5DSR. There's a few things to the setup that made it kind of difficult to switch over, but I'm glad that I made the change, and now I'm able to digitize film way faster than I ever have before, and the results come out looking really good. So let's dive right into taking a look at the setup. The light source was the most crucial part, so getting the light source to be even was really difficult. I didn't anticipate how difficult that would be. I'm using a studio strobe to illuminate the negative. So I've got a Flashpoint Studio 300, and the actual modeling lamp on it allows for me to focus really easily on the film, and then the flash tube itself gives the exposure, and it also gives a good color balance, I've found. Most of the light pads that are out there will have an uneven exposure. Like if you took a blank shot of the light pad and then darkened it a bit, you'd find that it's vastly uneven. So with any setup that you do, I highly suggest taking blank shots and then darkening them and adjusting the contrast a bit to see the evenness of your light source. I'm using this digital level, and I'll put it on top of my camera and get both axes, and then I'll put it on whatever my film carrier is and get that to be level as well. I'm using the negative supply 35mm film carrier. It works really well and allows me to digitize an entire 36 exposure roll in 7 minutes. These negative supply units also offer a different mask for the inside that allows you to get the full frame borders on the film, which I really like doing, so I was excited to get one of those. And really exciting news is that Negative Supply is coming out with a 120 unit, so pretty soon you'll be able to get the same full scan of your 120 film with the ease of one of these 35mm carriers, which is great. They do make a 4x5 option, and it's essentially like a glass unit that you would set your negative down onto, and I happen to already have one from my Epson scanning days. It's from betterscanning.com. It's an A&R glass unit for the V800 scanner. What I'll do is tape my negatives down to this so that they're entirely flat, and then I'll have to raise my copy stand up from where I have it for 35mm, and I'm able to shoot the whole negative. The major plus sides to using a strobe for this is it allows me to stay at ISO 100 and stay at like a middle aperture, so I'm usually around f8 to f16 range. I keep my strobe at half power. For the shutter speed, the max flash sync of this camera was 1/200th of a second, but I noticed that 1/200th wasn't fully even. It did have an exposure variance, and so did 1/25th. But 60th of a second had no variance, and everything under that had no variance. My goal is to have the ambient lighting in the room here not affect the exposure at all on the film. I want all the exposure to come from the flash. One of the main reasons that I decided to go with a flash instead of any other light source is that it was the most powerful amount of light that I could get, so I could stay at that middle aperture range and stay at ISO 100. And it also helped eliminate motion blur. So one of the issues that I had was I live in an old house and I live on a busy street, so as semi trucks go by all day, even at night, it would shake the house enough so anything lower than 15th of a second would give me motion blur in the negative, and so that doesn't work. And with the flash, it goes off so fast that the flash duration itself will keep the negative sharp. It goes off so quick that it's burned it onto the sensor, and no other ambient light was in any effect on that exposure. To talk about the setup here a little bit, I have a Bogen TC1 copy stand, and then this table. I cut a hole in the table and I cut a hole in the copy stand. I've got the strobe about 6 inches underneath the base of the table here, and I've put 2 layers of diffusion material on the copy stand itself, and then I had some leftover metal material from another project that I built this little unit and put a bit of plastic on top here, and this plastic acts as the next layer of diffusion. I think having your light source a little bit down from the first area of diffusion helps to kind of spread it a little bit, and I don't have any modifiers or anything on the strobe itself. I found that the modifiers limited the light, and I liked it to just be an omnidirectional light underneath the table. So I have an air compressor and try to make sure I keep dust off of everything. Once I've got my shots framed up on here, it's always good to check focus. I like to manually focus, especially because the focus will maintain across the whole roll. And then I'll move this little indicator over here so that every time I just frame it up to there. So shoot it, move on to the next frame, shoot, move on to the next frame. So now we're going to take our files into Lightroom and bring them to the Develop module. I use Negative Lab Pro to convert the negatives, and I've been liking the Naritsu color mode. So it'll take Negative Lab Pro a second to do its thing and convert your negatives, but once you've got them converted, you can go through the whole entire roll and adjust the color balance. I mostly do this just using the hue and strength at the bottom, and I prefer to do it more subtractively than additively. So instead of, you know, adding red, I'll try to remove some cyan. I didn't really intend for this video to take you through all the steps of color balancing your photos and taking them through Lightroom, exporting them and such, but I wanted to give everybody a general idea of what I'm using in terms of my setup and also how I'm taking them into Lightroom. So I hope this video inspires you and helps give you another option in terms of digitizing your film at home. As always, think more, shoot less.